This is Pod Populi, podcasts for the people.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the FemForce podcast. My name is Rachel Paskvan, and I am your host. And today I'm so excited and have so much privilege to be joined by Alreen. And she is a lawyer who is working so hard right now to represent women in the workplace, harassment cases, sexual assault, all of these things. And she's an author, an advocate, and a survivor. So she's going to be talking to us about trauma, justice, and the power of speaking out, and how that is affecting her both personally and obviously professionally. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So take us back and tell us, what was the experience of growing up, and how did that help shape your understanding of silence and survival?
My growing up, I would describe in one word as just terrifying. I had an abusive father who was abusive in all the various ways, right? Emotionally, verbally, physically, and sexually. And I had a mom who didn't say anything to protect me, despite her knowing what was going on. And so I spent my childhood just being terrified of what day to day looked like. And I spent my time praying to be happy and being out of that environment. And eventually that happened for me when I moved out of the house for college when I was 18.
I mean, and I'm so sorry you went through that, first of all. And I'm really excited to hear about the work that you're doing now and how you're helping other women and how that's helped yourself. And so since you grew up with such trauma and going through all of that, what was the turning point that really pushed you to finally speak out and start your own journey with therapy?
So when you're growing up and when you're experiencing trauma, you don't know it, right? You don't realize, I'm having a very traumatic experience right now, or I'm being triggered from this traumatic past that I have. You don't really know what's going on and what's wrong. You just know something isn't right. And so for me, my turning point was really having a daughter. She's just turned 13. And when she was born, wanting to be there, be present with her, not wanting her to be triggering to me, and wanting her to have a mother and family life that I never did. And so I knew in order for that to happen, I needed to change a lot of things that were going on with me, even though I didn't realize exactly what they were.
I mean, and that's so powerful. I mean, it ends with us. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's it. So powerful to even think about that and how you can affect the next generation just by doing that, and having a daughter and knowing that you're going to be able to change for her and then have her lifestyle change, which is so meaningful.
Exactly. Yeah. She'll never know that, right? I mean, she'll know it when she's older. I stopped generational trauma with her. I didn't pass it on to her. And so she lives a very healthy life, and one really that I dreamed of.
I mean, I love that. And you've been practicing law now for over 20 years. And so you started in class action law, correct?
Yeah. So I have been practicing law since 2002. And my first job, out of law school was doing class action law. So doing consumer fraud, insurance fraud against large corporations. And it could be for the way they were, their pricing practices, or the way they were selling you a product, or all those fees that you see on your credit card statement, or when you're purchasing a house. It could be for a variety of different things. And I did that for the first 5 years of my career at a very large law firm, and really got, I think, the skills that I needed to practice law, knowing that I was always going to be up against more money, more power, and more resources.
I mean, that's so impressive. And then you started your own firm, correct?
Yes, I started my own firm in 2007.
Which is phenomenal. And you've been focusing specifically on representing women, especially in the workplace, correct?
Yeah.
And you obviously, that your personal life and your history, obviously, that made a huge contributing factor to wanting to do this.
Exactly. I mean, earning a living is paramount in the workplace, and I don't think any woman should have to go to work and be abused or discriminated against when they're just trying to earn a living to support themselves and their family. And so the class action law, our firm still practices somewhat, but my focus has really been and has become representing women who have been abused in the hands of people that are more powerful or entities that are more powerful.
And I mean, how does your personal story influence how you advocate for your clients? I'm sure it has to be emotional and there's got to be a connection there and like helping them get through this.
Yeah, I think I can get really at their level and where they're at. So I have a very passionate place. And this is also part of my healing journey and my therapy, right? So all of those trigger points that would be triggered, by and at still comes up when I'm representing my clients, but I've learned through my work how to control it and really harness that power to be a very passionate advocate. So I think that's what my clients get when they, have me on their side. And I essentially have used my trauma, to create an advocacy that I don't think you can get when somebody hasn't experienced what I have.
I mean, and what are some of the common themes that you see in women who come to you after experiencing harassment or assault?
Very similar, I would say, to how I felt, where you feel ashamed, you're really scared, you don't think people are going to believe you, and you don't feel empowered or powerful. You feel more helpless and hopeless. And so those are the women that come to me at my office. And I think what's so beautiful about that from my own experience and for all of these women that I've helped previously is at the end of the process, they leave more empowered and they know they have a voice and can stand up for themselves.
I mean, that's phenomenal. And do you feel like it's a little bit of help, like not complete closure? Obviously, like having these kind of traumas, closure is not really anything you can always get because there's triggering moments and life happens. But do you have like a connection to them emotionally to be like, I've done this too, and like, we're going to get through this?
Yeah, I don't necessarily raise it with every person that walks in. It kind of depends on how the conversation goes. Some people, might come to me and already know my story. But I always start with, I believe you, right? You come in and you're so worried that, I'm going to say these things that people aren't going to believe me. And so step one is, I believe you, we believe you, and we're a team here to help you stand up for yourself. And ultimately the choice is yours to make. We're just here to let you know that you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to be by yourself. Like you have people that are going to support you through this process, whichever way you decide to go. And for me, what's really important is that they know that they have rights, right? Because when you've been abused and you've been victimized, you really think everything's against you. People are against you. The laws are against you. And you don't have you feel powerless. Like you have no power because this situation has happened to you. And I'm really there to tell them that, no, there are so many laws that protect you. You have so many rights, and you get to choose whether to enforce them or not. And so I think it starts shifting from feeling powerless to feeling powerful when you just know what your rights are. And whatever this person or entity has been telling you is not true, or whatever you're feeling has just become, a thought you've created and not necessarily based in fact.
And it has to be such an uplifting and like powerful experience to be like, to having at least one person be like, no, but I believe you. Like you don't have to sit here and explain or give excuses or stumble over your words and trying to explain like, we believe you. We're starting from like a really positive place in such a dark and negative experience overall.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that's just so special that you're able to use your own past trauma to like really help. I mean, if you would have had these services or you would have had someone on your side, do you think you would have been able to speak up earlier?
Yeah, if I had anybody on my side, right? Like I'm the youngest of 10 kids. And I have parents. And so for me, my home life, I never had anybody there for me and telling me that, right? Everybody around me just pretended like it wasn't happening, right? Everybody just stayed quiet and didn't acknowledge what was going on. And I really think that's like step one. Like it happened, and there's people here when you come to our office acknowledging that what you're saying is true and it did happen to you. And now, what are the next steps you want to take from there? So yeah, it would have helped a lot if I had that growing up, but I didn't.
I mean, and you wrote a book. So you wrote a book to help others understand, what does it mean to stand up for yourself? What inspired you to write it, to really put your story out there? Because was it hopeful for you? Was it like a release at all? Or were you like, this is my duty kind of to really tell my story and see if other women connect?
Yeah, so I wrote my book, Fired Up, Fueling Triumph from Trauma, to help women stand up for themselves. And how do you do it, right? How do I find my voice and how do I speak out? And to me, I was inspired by all the women that had come to me before, right? They had put themselves out there. They had shared their story. They had, sought legal action. Yeah. And I saw the effects that it had on them and their healing journey. And so writing my book was the way I stood up for myself. I never took legal action. I never said anything. I never stood up to my dad. And so writing my book was the way I did it. And that's how I stood up for myself, for no longer keeping it a secret and letting it torment me. I put it out there and I am better off for it. And I see the same things in my clients that come forward and tell their stories. It's scary at the beginning, but at the end of it, they're always better off, and are always thankful that they did what they did.
And it has to feel really powerful. And in our pre-interview, we were talking and you said, silence is the biggest gaslight. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. As I was mentioning earlier, in my home, there was a lot of adults around. Yeah. And all the adults in the room weren't acknowledging what was going on. They weren't there to protect me. They weren't, my dad would, be in a complete rage. And we were then just supposed to forget all about it, go to church, put a smile on our face, put a dress on, and act like nothing ever happened. Like there was never a moment where it was like, I'm sorry that happened, or, yes, that was really harsh of dad to do that, or whatever it may be. There was just no acknowledgement that it ever happened. And so you're having all these horrible things happen to you and to others around you. And all you're doing is you're keeping it inside, and maybe it's not that bad. Maybe this is normal. He's not a horrible person. And I just need to get over it, right? And so I spent, I would say, my young life and most of my adult life trying to convince myself that it wasn't that bad. I was overreacting. I needed to get over it. I was ungrateful. I was selfish. And I needed to forget about what happened. And I continued to repress those feelings, those thoughts, those events. And my physical body really took a toll. And so I had a lot of physical manifestations as a result of, what I experienced as a kid. And I still wanted to continue, bottling it up. And so I say silence is the biggest gaslight of all, because not saying anything really is what made me say to myself, well, it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't really that bad.
You weren't validating. Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't being validated. And it is a big deal. And so that needs to be, I can imagine being able to have that validation, even just for yourself, that's got to be a really powerful thing.
Yes.
So what was the emotional impact of speaking your truth after years of silence with your family, with yourself, with your partner? How was that? So
I am emotionally and mentally better than I ever have been. And my relationships are stronger and I'm more connected to people. And I just feel better in my own skin. And that's where the self-esteem really comes into place. I obviously come across very confident. I'm a litigator. I do trials. But on the inside, I never felt good in my own skin because I had this thing that I was hiding and keeping a secret and not wanting to share because I was so scared what people were going to think about me if I let it out. And once it was out, it's like this heavy weight that you've carried forever and it's no longer there, right? I don't carry it anymore. And so I myself have been better off with respect to my family. I think time, right? Even though it's my story, it does affect them. And so they might not have been ready for me to share, what happened to us at home. And so I think with my family, there's so many of them, so there's some different dynamics that are going on there. But I think time will really make that stronger and better than it was as well. And with my husband, yeah, I mean, we already have a very strong relationship. And of course, putting this out there, you have those discussions with him as well. But yeah, we're at a really good place, and he's very supportive, and it strengthens not only your relationship with your partner, but like I said, with my daughter, and then also just in like business, right? With my clients, I have a stronger relationship. With my business partners, I have a stronger relationship. And that's primarily because I feel good about myself and where I'm at. And that's really another impetus for the book, right? I believe every person should feel this way and not let their trauma continue to eat at them and take them down, right? Like the event already has taken so much from you, like you don't need it to continue forever.
That's amazing. And I mean, to be able to get it out in that kind of way, in a creativity, and just one person that helps one person be able to speak up or to break that pattern or that relationship, like that's got to mean so much to you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I do it, right? Because I want you to live your best possible life. And I want you to know that it's possible, because I was there too, right? It's not for me. It's never going to happen for me. All these other people that are, living this beautiful life, it's meant for them, but I am not deserving of that. And so just how that shifts and how that changes, that's really what my book is telling you. Like it does shift, right? You're not stuck wherever you think you're stuck at. It can change. It just requires some effort on your part, even though you weren't the cause of it.
I mean, you went through all this earlier in your life, of course, but the last couple of years, the world has definitely taken a center stage for what is happening to women, and especially with the Me Too movement. And it really shifted things and, gave women a platform to be able to feel like they should be able to speak up, and that it was okay to speak up. And what we're doing and speaking up is really changing other people's lives. Do you think that the Me Too movement shifted things for better or for worse?
For better, for sure. Like, I think finally you knew you weren't alone, because that's the thing. When this is happening to you and you're experiencing this, you feel like you're all by yourself. And the only person that it's happening to you is you.
Yeah.
I think the Me Too movement really changed that for women to know they weren't alone. And by talking about it, that's the only way we learned about it, right? We only knew it was such a prevalent issue because people were finally ready to speak up about it. And so I think we're better off for it. And I think we're only going to be in a continuing, trend upward as people continue to share their stories and let others know they're not alone.
I think society has, it's just played such a negative part, like especially for women. If a girl goes out and, is sexually active, she's a slut, she's a whore. She was wearing something that was too revealing, like she deserved it, all of these different things. When men go and do these things, they're players. They're spreading their seed, whatever the vernacular is for them, that gives it more of a powerful and, masculine energy towards it, comparative to the women that are having to go through. And then I think that would silence me even more, to be like, well, no one's I deserve this. It's what society's telling me. My skirt was too short. My shirt was too tight.
Yeah. And that's a conduct that needs to stop, right? The victim blaming needs to stop. And there's no need for it. Like, I really don't understand why it matters where you were, what you were wearing. That doesn't give anybody permission to abuse you or hurt you in any way. There's no reason for it. And so all of those questions, like, why was she there? She shouldn't have been there. Well, she went out with him multiple times, or she was wearing that short skirt, whatever it may be, that needs to stop culturally. And again, I think as people realize that, because, right, sometimes society acts in a way because it's been done for so long that they don't even know the harm that it's causing. And so I just think by educating people and educating the public, by, doing those things, you're actually silencing people from coming forward. At our firm, we have a survivor advocate who's trauma informed. And, we really are pushing this for all law firms to be trauma informed. And this was something really important to me because I didn't realize as a lawyer, we're not asking why questions to re-victimize or to hurt you. We need the information so we can tell the story. But what I learned is by asking those why questions, we were re-victimizing our clients. And just by shifting the way we approach the questioning, we can get the information not only that we want, but more of the information as to what happened to them, because we're not shutting them down when we ask those why questions. And so we provide training to other law firms. And we're really proud of the fact that everybody in our office is trauma informed, has received the training. And so, when people come into our office, we're not re-victimizing them by just asking, the questions for us to get the information we need.
Well, because it's been such a taboo, like to speak out or to, and stay silent and things like that, this has to be such a learning experience for those who are trying to help. On mature it and figure out like what's the best way to do this, or we didn't realize this would do these kind of things, and like because it's going to have to be a lot. I mean, so you're in it for the long haul to try to change this.
Exactly. So yes, the why questions are like when people give a story and they've experienced trauma, they don't give you a story in this linear chronological fashion that lawyers want. It's kind of all over the place, and it's our job to figure out how the information comes into play. But I just think those are things that we've learned about, like the neurobiology of trauma and how that affects people. And so that's just it's not only interesting, but it really helps us connect and work with the clients that we work with.
That's awesome. And I guess what advice could you give women who might feel too scared, and even if they don't want to speak up, but they're worried about like what happens when you pursue legal action? What happens to your career? Do people think you're a tattletale? Like all of the things that come along with it. What kind of advice would you give to those women?
Every woman that comes in my office, I always tell them, like, the choice is yours. Just by seeing me doesn't mean you have to file legal action, right? And so my advice to women who are thinking about it is at least know what your rights are, know what the laws are, know what all the options are, so then you can decide what choice you want to make of whether you want to file legal action or not. And so that's the advice I give, because if you don't know, then you've created some scenario in your head that might not even be true. So at least know what the facts are and then decide what direction you want to go.
Because the labels, I mean, for me, that would be the big thing. I think of like Monica Lewinsky, and like she's a grown woman. Late 40s probably at this. I'm like, I don't know how old I am. So late 40s probably at this point. But that is what she's known for. She's synonymous with that experience when she was taken advantage of and groomed, and like nothing happened to him. He's got to stay the most powerful man in the world. And you look at that and think, well, I don't want that to happen. Like, I don't want that to be my reputation. Can you do this in a way where it doesn't have to, you break the silence in their own way, but it doesn't have to be too public and more of a private experience, I guess, to retaliate in that way?
Yeah, so there's various options. So in sexual assault cases, we have a right to not disclose your name publicly. You can keep your name as like Jane Doe or just like with initials. And so you've got that option of not disclosing your name publicly if you don't want to. Some women do, right? Some women want to go out there and say, I want to let the world know that I'm saying this against this person. And that's also okay. And it's also okay to not make your name publicly known. There are confidential forums that you can be in, like arbitration is a confidential forum and it's not publicly made available. But again, it's up to the woman on whether or not she wants to pursue it in arbitration or go publicly with it in court. And so that's what I'm talking about, of like meeting with an attorney and knowing what your options are and knowing what your rights are and knowing what the different laws are. So then you can make a decision on which way to go, as opposed to creating your own narrative of, if I speak up, I'm never going to get a job again. People are going to only know me for this. And, so I can't say anything, right? Don't create that narrative without knowing what all your rights are.
What legal changes do you believe should, need to come around to better protect women? Because a lot of this is not at a federal level. It's individualized in the states.
So I'm in California. So California has a very high level of protection for women and employees in the workplace. So I think we live in a great state, and so that already exists. I don't know what state by state laws are, but even federally, we have a lot of laws that protect women. So federally, that applies across all 50 states. And the laws really do protect you. But I think what's important is women have to use them, right? Kind of the narrative that we were talking about, which is, well, I can't come forward because, people are going to think I'm litigious, or people aren't going to believe me, or it's not going to be worth it, or I'm going to be known as, a tattletale, or I'm never going to get another job again, or it's going to affect my career. Like all of those things that I think our society has created this narrative, but that aren't true, right? Like women come forward every single day. They are winning in the courts, and they're still getting another job. People are still hiring them. They're not all of these coming forward and not hireable again. And so I think, I think they're created narratives. But I think once you realize, what the laws are, you'll also learn that, once you bring a legal action, you're not, scorned forever.
I can only imagine. And it's gotta be hard because, the news cycle and the media really focuses on, what is the negative? What's the dramatic story? And you're not hearing the positive news a lot. These things are not being highlighted. So when you're working to be like, no, this can turn out really great, the research of going off and being like, okay, but I haven't heard anything about anybody, that's got to be really intimidating.
Exactly. But I think the way to look at it is think about how many more cases you're hearing as well, right? From wherever it was 10 years ago. So even though it feels like it's not progressing, the fact that more women are coming forward, that is the progress we're making. The fact that you're hearing about more cases shows you the progress that we're making. And so it exists, but I can't say that, the voices on the other side trying to make you think that, you're going to be worse off by doing this exist. And I'm here to tell you, for all the cases I've worked on, I don't know a single woman who's worse off from pursuing legal action than they were by not pursuing legal action.
What gives you hope when working on a really emotionally intense case?
I think just based on experience, the fact that I've worked with so many people, that I know it's hard during the process. But I know how they come around on the other side. And really the newer generation, the younger women coming forward, I think they are more in tune with wanting to speak up than, my generation or I was, when I was their age.
I mean, it's just to be so vulnerable and to be able to, you're really making a difference in so many women's lives. So that has to, really, really mean something, not just for your current self, but for your younger self too.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Turning the script, right? Flipping the script.
I love that. So as we wrap up, I have a final question that I ask all of my guests, but if you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Even though you don't think it right now, you are so powerful, and you are going to do some amazing things with the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, that's so beautiful and so positive. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and for letting women know that there are avenues out there and there's possibilities, and that you're helping so many women out there be able to get through this.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having this platform.
So tell the listeners, though, where they can find your book. We'll plug it a little and get it out there and make sure everyone knows to pick up a copy.
I appreciate that. Yeah, the easiest way to find me and my book is on my website, which is alreen.com, ALREEN.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. And everyone, we will talk to you next week. Thanks for tuning in.